Hydration. How much water you should drink? What's optimal? Let's talk about that. What's going on? TMI Fitness Nation. Oh, it's good to be back, guys. How you doing? Hope you had a happy and a very filling Thanksgiving. This is episode 2 of the TMI Fitness Podcast. So welcome back. This week's topic, hydration. So we're going to get right into it. Hydration, yeah. Pretty much, we're going to just discuss a couple things about it. And when it comes to weather, the most important things when it comes to hydration, because I think, in my opinion, that it's really comes down to temperature as well as humidity. And that's how you kind of determine how much your specific hydration needs need to be met. But there's a lot of factors that go into it too, specifically like the amount of exercise that a person, an activity that they do, the environment, which ties into weather, kind of like I said. And then overall health as well also plays a part. But we'll mostly just talk about exercise as well as environment. And there's I answer a couple questions about how much water I drink, things like that. No email questions this week, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. Now, the body itself is made up about 60 to 75%. Well, the body weight is comprised of about 60 to 75% water. So with that being said, I personally drink, based on my exertion levels and how much I actually sweat, I try to get, in a perfect world, about a gallon a day. That's ideal for me. It's not impossible to do it. I don't like walk around with a jug of water or anything like that. But what I do is just get I have like a 32 ounce flask, thermos. You can buy like REI. They're pretty cheap. And 4 of those in a day and you're good. That's 1 gallon. Keeps me hydrated. But plenty of you know already that when it comes to hydration, you don't necessarily want to be peeing absolutely clear, but you don't want your urine to be brown. So just hydrate to a level of adequate urine clearness, if you will. But let's talk about the specifics in regards to environment. Environment, it comes down to, like I said, you got temperature and humidity. Now, for example, if you have somebody who's training for a race. Now, this person happens to live in Washington, D.C., and they're training for a race in, let's say, Arizona. Okay? Now, Washington, D.C. and Arizona, and let's say the race is in January. In Washington, D.C., Arizona, both places have relatively the same humidity. It's both very low. They're both overall dry places. So we're talking annually during that month of the year, about 0 to 2% in regards to humidity. So pretty dry. But obviously there's a significant temperature difference. In Arizona, stats say here that they are about 69 degrees to about 47 degrees Fahrenheit in January, while DC is about 44 degrees to about 29 degrees Fahrenheit in January. So if you were training for a distance race, you would need to hydrate more during your training, but you definitely need to hydrate even more than that when you actually perform the race in Arizona. And the difference is because of the actual temperature, not necessarily humidity. Now, what does that actually mean when you tie it all together? Okay, so humidity is important because if you have low humidity, like your 0 to 2%, it means the body is able to cool itself down because sweat can evaporate at a faster rate. That's how the body naturally cools itself and its overall core temperature. Sweat evaporation. Somewhere that's a little more humid, like Florida, the air is obviously a little thicker, muggier. You usually hear that term. That's tied into overall air density and humidity. So that's what that's about. The more humid the environment, the less the body can actually cool its core temperature because it can't evaporate as well. But that's the higher the humidity. The lower the humidity, the easier it is for the body to evaporate sweat and cool the core temperature. So with this specific scenario of Arizona, both areas have low humidity. So you'll effectively be able to cool body heat the same way. But the issue in this scenario is the temperature difference. It's about a 20-degree difference. And that's the big thing. The actual temperature increase and difference based on the two areas is what leads to an exponentially higher rate of sweat. And because you sweat more in Arizona or a place that's warmer based on actual temperature, you lose more like electrolytes as well as just overall body water. So based on that information, what can you do? Like, what's actually better to drink? Is it electrolyte beverages? Is it water? Both are beneficial. Some people sweat more, like myself. Water is always great to utilize. But one study showed that when it came to distance training specifically, they tested two groups. They did prior as well as intra as well as post hydration methods to see, and they used water as well as like a Gatorade style carbohydrate filled drink to see the effect of who would actually get a better performance. Well, the research ended up showing that the group that used the electrolyte beverages on the whole ended up running like way more distance in general due to extra carbohydrates and like glycogen levels in their body. So in that particular scenario, these are all prior endurance athletes too. So in that particular scenario, it seemed that the study, which would indicate that carbohydrate drinks like your Gatorades and your Powerades are more effective to the distance runner. And I believe in the study, they're also in a predominantly like dry environment, low humidity and drier, so that dry heat. Now, like I said earlier, the factors that influence your water needs, it depends on the person. Like, how much do you actually need to drink? Like I said, it depends on the person. So I know you've probably heard the whole adage is drink about 8 glasses a day or drink a gallon a day. Some people can drink more water, some people can drink less. Ideally, men should take in about 3.7 liters. In general, this is based on the National Academies of Science and Engineering. So an adequate amount based on their studies would be about 3.7 liters for men, and then about 2.7 for like your standard woman, like the United States. So this also covers fluid intake via food as well, because there is water and like just the food you eat in general. So that plays a part into it too. But this doesn't take into account the athletic kind of person that may exponentially sweat more due to exercising and training. So that's what I'm saying. My rule of thumb, just to keep it simple, is that whatever body weight you lose during exercise training, like weigh yourself beforehand. Say you're about 190. If you get done working out and you're 185, in my opinion, I advise you to hydrate up to a point where you're at least 2 pounds short of your prior to working out weight. So you're going to hydrate to at least, in this particular scenario, 188. Just to rehydrate to a point where you're at least almost there. I feel like that's reasonable. If you can get to the point or even surpass it, that's fine too. But then you might have to lead with you might have issues with stomach distension and irritation, and some people get nauseous if they drink too much water, especially if you're like within the event itself and you can't afford to get sick, like you're playing a football game or basketball. Yeah, just hydrate to the point post exercise of being at least 2 pounds short of your prior to exercise weight. So that's what I would advise. And that pretty much wraps it up, guys. This was a quick episode. Had a lot of technical difficulties in recording this one, so you might hear some distortions in the sound. Sorry about that. We'll try to get back on it better next week. So if the information I provided has been helpful, interesting, even funny, feel free to drop a like, comment, subscribe, share, drop a question below to be answered in the next podcast, or just send it to my email, tmientertainment365@gmail.com. Follow me on Facebook. Thank you, and see you guys in a couple weeks. But, what do I know? I'm just out here trying to make it.